Another one. Another one. Touchdown Jags! Ball game!
Another Jags podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to another Jags podcast, episode 34. We're in a better mood this week than we were last week, that is for sure. We're going to get to all things about Jaguars, Jets. We're going to talk about what impressed us, some concerns that we have. We're going to be talking about, Leonard Fournette, the running back situation. The Jags have been working out some running backs. We'll talk about that. We're going to talk about why we're an idiot, maybe some things that we thought were going to happen that weren't. And we're also going to recap the entire first quarter of the season, the first 4 games, our thoughts. How do we feel about how the Jaguars performed and how we feel about how they're going to perform going forward? Before we get into all of that, we want to remind everyone that we are on Twitter at Another Jags Pod. We are on Facebook and Instagram at Another Jags Podcast. You can go to our website, anotherjagspodcast.com, and if none of that suits your fancy, you can go to YouTube, type in Another Jags Podcast, and you can find us there as well.
Don't forget that our website is absolute garbage, not pretty looking, and might be updated somewhere in the future.
All those things. Complete dumpster fire.
Actually, I fixed it. It looks really good.
Oh, okay.
Haven't been to in a while.
No, just kidding. I just wanted to expose all of you for not checking the website.
Right, that's okay. Guilty.
Exposed.
Let's get right into it. We have a full crew with us tonight. Joey, Robert, and Jason. We're all doing good. We always are after a Jaguars win. Let me ask you guys, plain and simple, what stood out to you in this week's win over the Jets?
I mean, I think the obvious is D.D. Westbrook. I mean, he played like a man this week. I've been looking for that since, honestly, we drafted him. I know he had injury issues last year, but watching his tape out of college, the guy looked like a beast, and he played like it, man. That really stood out. And also, will like the real Blake Bortles stand up?
Career day?
Pretty close to it. Other than the New England game, but again, it was the same sort of thing. It was just crisp passes. It was commanding the offense. In the pocket, dude, he ducked out of some sacks. He made all the right calls. It was really impressive because that worried me coming into the game. So it's kind of a toss-up between those two.
What specifically about Dede did you like that you saw from him? Obviously, he made catches, but it was different this week.
It wasn't just the catches. It was the separation, but even more than that, it was the run after the attempt, which we saw a little bit in the game before that. But you really saw in this because he wasn't really wide open after the catch a lot of the times, but he would stiff arm, he would roll off. Dude, he was manhandling the DBs on that team, and they have a pretty good defense. So to see him do that in that game just excites me for the future of what he's going to do.
Sure. Okay.
I'm going to say wide receiver as well, but I'm going to go Dante Moncrief because he did exactly what I feel like we needed him to do with that big 67-yard one. And, he was 5 for 109 yards. It was a big day for everyone, but finally happy to see him possibly earning his money at this right now. So.
Yeah, I thought he had a good game. He had a great 1 catch and touchdown, which is awesome. You love to see that. What I liked about him even before that was just he's kind of a possession receiver, but he was doing that, which I appreciated. So yeah, I thought he had a great game. I agree. Earning his contract a little bit more for sure in that game, and hopefully that just progresses with him.
What encourages me about that though is that because he hasn't played fantastic in all games. But obviously there's something between him and Bortles that the coaches see at practice because they keep giving him those attempts. And at this point, it's not just about the money they're paying him. At this point, it's like, hey, it's going to work at some point, and we're starting to see that a little bit, I think.
Did you guys listen to the Blake Bortles mic'd up on Jaguars.com by any chance?
Yeah, that was awesome.
It was fantastic. Yeah. If our listeners haven't gone, go to Jaguars.com and listen to that because it's 3 minutes of complete heaven. But he says on the sidelines after that catch and throw to Moncrief, he's like, finally, enough with the back shoulder throws. I'm glad we were able to just let one go. I was like, that's kind of telling, that he was kind of tired of that and wanted to throw a deep one, and he does, and it works. So that is pretty interesting, that little insight right there. I liked hearing that.
He must have listened to our podcast because that's what we said he was that curl route back shoulder receiver. That's all he could do, and it was awesome. The mic'd up, I thought D.D. Westbrook was amazing, and I was going to come in and rave on D.D. Westbrook. But after hearing the mic'd up, it's like, yeah, Bortles is my guy.
Yeah.
It was so awesome. It's like, if I were a player, I'd probably react the same way. And that's how everyone feels. And that's why he's the people's quarterback.
Hey, he just works here, though.
He just works here.
Also,
how many times did you listen to it?
I watched it 3 times.
Yeah, it was about 3.5 minutes long, give or take. I think I listened to it twice.
Yeah, you really can't rave about either one of them too much. After that game. honestly. I mean, I think that really shows what we're capable of. And
I just
what's
can't
happening.
believe the Jets couldn't stop. It was the same drag. It was the same mesh concept
Oh
where
my
both
gosh, it
receivers
was.
run drags across the field, and they
Was it
couldn't
you
stop
that posted that on Twitter?
Yeah, I posted it. It took me forever. I basically just recorded every completion, and almost every one I was like, well, there's another one. There's another one. At some point, like drop to a cover 3 and have 5 deep, and
Hey, if it's not broke.
I know.
I mean, seriously though, like
insane.
I'll defer to you on this one, Jason. Our receivers were open, like they were getting separation. The complete opposite of last week, and the Jets have a good defense. So like, what was the difference?
Well, something that people aren't talking about is you kind of mentioned it with Blake's evasiveness, like his ability to like backpedal in the pocket and still like keep his shoulders straight and make a good throw is amazing. You don't see quarterbacks keep their pocket poised the way he does. I don't think people get enough credit for that because he escapes a lot of problems where other quarterbacks, like even Mahomes or these other guys, they just turn their shoulder and scramble out of the pocket, where he keeps his eyes downfield, which is awesome.
Yeah, he literally in the second quarter, I believe, had somebody hanging off his head.
Yeah,
He's like getting like
still-
strangled.
And he went with it and just stood straight back up and made a pass. I was like, that's amazing. I mean, that's veteran quarterback stuff at that point, which is really good to see.
Another thing though that people aren't talking about is how well the offensive line pass blocked. The run blocking we can kind of notice more because if you run the ball well, then it is what it is. But Josh Wells had a 90 grade in pass block, which is 20 points higher than the next offensive lineman. Josh Wells, the guy we were like concerned about, he had the highest grade of any category if you take all the categories from all the players, and there's a bunch on PFF, that grade is the highest amongst any categories, was Josh Wells' pass grade. And he played 77 snaps. He didn't like come in late.
Well, that's a huge point too, and it's a good one because the week before you had Chris Reed playing. They had him inactive this week. They brought in was it Walters? Walker, Josh Walker.
Oh, Josh Walker.
Josh Walker, sorry. And so, I think and more evidence to the Jaguars coaching staff and players that are listening to our podcast, because we talked about that last week as well, that why is Chris Reed playing at all? Well, he didn't this week. And so I think the offensive line just played so much better than against the Titans. It allowed Bortles, to have a better game. It's true. It just seemed like everyone was open all the time. It was fun to watch.
So what happens when you have time in the pocket, though? When you have
It's true.
time for the receivers to get into their routes, they're going to get open. Doesn't matter who you are and what defense you're playing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess a lot stood out to me in this game now that we're really talking about it, because like you mentioned, James, the coaching staff in this game did the opposite of what they did last game, and they made adjustments. And one of those being is like Dede being the man this game, because Cole really has been kind of our like front runner, number one wide receiver, it seemed like, but he disappeared in this game because Dede was doing so well. So I think they had to have changed the game plan at some point and said, look, he's the hot hand. We're going to him, and we're sticking with that. And I'm fine with that, because I really think at this point with our core that it might be a different guy every week.
Do you think that is true, though, that the coaching staff changed their play calling to focus more on Dede, or is Dede just the one getting open, and so Bortles naturally is going to look to him? I mean, quarterbacks do that. They look for their guy because they trust their guy. So is Dede becoming that guy? Because you had said Cole kind of was in a way, but he's had one good game. Out of 4, he's had one good game. He did nothing against Tennessee. He did nothing against the Giants. He did nothing against the Jets. And trust me, I know, because I've started him 3 times in fantasy, and he's given me one awesome game.
You had a lot of good research on Keelan Cole.
He really hasn't. I mean, if we're being honest. So
I'm not obviously in the locker room, but I think that the coaching staff has their first, 10, 20 plays usually kind of panned out a little bit. And I think that they're running with the guy with the hot hand at that point. And I think that happened with Cole. It's happened with Dede. It might be, Austin, Severian Jenkins next week. I mean, who knows? But I think they are being more kind of mobile with their play calls as far as, who's looking good, who's Blake comfortable with, who's getting open, where the matchups are at, and changing it up. We don't have that one guy we're trying to go to every time, which is nice.
it is, but at the same time, I think naturally the cream rises to the top, and I think it's still early. It's only 4 games in. I think we may see that happening with Dede.
It should, and I hope it does.
Something that I think we should also think about is with Marquise Lee injury, Bortles didn't have that first read guy. Like Keelan Cole's still kind of doing the role he did, that deep threat, deep post guy. And I think Westbrook has just emerged as that first read receiver that Blake looks to. I mean, it was evident in the preseason at the snap, Bortles was looking to Marquise Lee. So with him off the team due to injury, then we're looking for someone to step up. And I think Dede has just become that role. And like we talked about, the Jets' inability to stop that crossing route made it super easy for Blake's first read to be open. And so I think the game plan kind of tended to that to happen. But I like what Joey said about how one game it could be Dede, one game it could be Keelan Cole. Who knows? I mean, if I had to guess, I would guess that the next team is going to come out focused on trying to stop that crossing route. And they would look to film like the Titans to see how they did. And what did they do? I tried to look back and see. They played a little more zone. They took away Blake's scrambling. I don't know what they're going to do, but there's no way it can work every week. So hopefully they look to something else to kind of get the offense out of.
I mean, that's the thing with Dede and why I've been so big on him. Other than his like early college off the field stuff and the fact that he played in a conference that doesn't play defense, I mean, he was probably a first round draft pick, maybe early second round wide receiver, and we got him as a steal. So I mean, the talent was there, and he's been absolutely perfect. I mean, you haven't had one issue with him in the locker room. You have not had one issue with him off the field. So I mean, his talent is obviously way above where we drafted him at. So it's starting to show, I think.
You know, I know the coaching staff going into the season, they were asked about the wide receiver group and the lack of a number one, and Hackett kind of said what you're saying, like we have a bunch of number twos. It can be anybody any week, but I think naturally you're going to have a number one guy. It's just natural to do that. So I agree. I think there could be a different weapon every week, but at the same time, I don't know. I could see Dede taking that spot. Maybe just because of Bortles looking to him more or whatever, but he just, to me, through the first 4 games, he's been the most outstanding wide receiver.
He plays like he did last week. It won't be even a contest.
No, not at all.
What impressed me the most with him, too, was him fighting for extra yards. I mean, he is not a big guy, and he was having like 4 people on him, and he was still getting like an additional like 5 yards. I don't even know how that's physically possible, but I mean, every time I was like shocked. I mean, he was fighting for every yard on there. I loved it.
It was
awesome. The same thing. He must be really strong. Yeah. I mean, because he is not a big guy, like you said, but he looked it on the field on Sunday. That's for sure.
Okay, so we've talked about Dede being possibly the best wide receiver aside from Blake, and I guess even the offensive lineman. I guess, but is Yeldon our best offensive weapon right now?
I think the verdict's out on that. I mean, he had a decent game this week, but I don't know. I don't see him being able to get over 18 handoffs, especially with the ankle right now. I mean, he still has a banged up ankle, and that makes me nervous. I mean, we had to bring someone else in to help supplement that, because I mean, if he keeps running this hard, unless he's gonna get healthier, I mean, it's kind of a coin flip on when he might actually get hurt or not.
I don't know. I thought he did okay. I mean, 2.9 yards per carry. I know it's not all his fault. O-line played good in the pass, but, you know, against the run, they weren't that great. But 18 attempts, 52 yards, that's not great. If you take out Yeldon and Fournette's carries, we had Blake Bortles and Dede Westbrook had 2 carries for 39 yards, and we had 126 total. So we have less than 100 if we take out 2 carries from Dede and Blake. So when you look at it like that, and Fournette actually was decent until he got hurt, 11 carries, 30 yards. I know Yeldon was good in the passing game. Here's just what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that we could put anybody there, and they would give you the production Yeldon is. And if Fournette's there, I think you get more production out of that position. But is he undervalued? I don't think so, but he's doing well. I don't want you to get the wrong impression of how I feel about him, but I don't think he's unreplaceable.
This might make me change completely why I'm an idiot, because I could choose from many things on that. But why do you say that? You could put anybody there because, I mean, we're supposed to be a power running team. Our offensive line's banged up.
I mean,
and
you
we're
say
passing a lot.
I'm with you. The conception is that we are a power running team, but we're not. If you look at our yards and our scores, we're not getting any yards as a power running team. All of our yards are coming in the passing game. Even our running backs are getting most of their production in the passing game. I mean, Yeldon's touchdown was a reception that anybody could have caught and ran in, and there's no one touched him. So, yeah, he had good numbers, but he didn't do anything that was like, man, Yeldon is special. That's the only thing I think.
Is that because of the offensive line doing so poorly at the run blocking game? I mean, they're doing really great at the pass blocking, but we just still don't seem to get holes opened up on the run side.
Yeah, I mean, 3 yards a carry is average. you ideally want more, but it's average. So I just think they're better pass blockers, and teams are trying to stop the run, and the pass game is working.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. I mean, the reason partly that the running yards were down is because they just kept throwing the ball because everyone was open the whole time.
Yeah.
Why run the ball when you can do drag routes or slant routes or whatever that are 5 yards and wide open? You get 10 to 15 yards after the catch. But the reason I asked that about Yeldon is because he's highly involved in the offense. Whether or not he's breaking off a 50-yard run or not is not really even what I'm looking at. It's more just he continues to touch the ball more than any other player. And we'll get to Fournette in a little bit, but with him being out, you really have to wonder, what is Yeldon's role in this offense going to be?
Can't forget he had a brutal fumble in that game.
Yes, he did.
So ideally, you don't want your guy touching the ball the most to fumble. I know it happens. Can't give him too much of a knock on it. If it becomes a trend, though, he's almost unplayable because you can't have a guy that fumbles. I mean, that was a big fumble.
Mm-hmm.
They could have come back in the game on that. That was terrible. It was in our own side of the field. I mean, it was bad. It almost hurt us big time.
Yeah, but he hasn't had a history of that. I mean, to knock a guy for that fumble, I mean...
They also, they didn't split. It wasn't like they were splitting carries between him and Grant.
You
it wasn't 50-50.
Grant had one carry.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they clearly have defined Yeldon as the RB2 and then with Fournette out, RB1. It just seems to me like they're riding the Yeldon train a little bit offensively.
I honestly think Jason's being way harsh on Yeldon. I mean, yards per carry is one statistic, like you said, James. I mean, there's other things that go into it, his blocking and his pass catching. I mean, dude, he's been pretty money. I mean,
16 yards per reception last week.
I mean, I've been a huge critic of him since we drafted him, and honestly, before the season, I would have been happy if they just cut him, traded him. Just he wasn't even on the team, and they went another route. But man, he's really stepped up this season. And like I said, like Robert said, he has been playing on a pretty severely hurt ankle. From all indications, and still putting up productive numbers and filling in when he's needed to. So, I mean, I don't know if this is a good segue to why I'm an idiot, but I'm an idiot for saying that he shouldn't be on the team because he's really stepped up this year.
So much so that you started him in fantasy.
I did, and he added to my buzzsaw for performance with his 20 points. I mean, in my mind, I think he's gone above and beyond. He's kind of rejuvenated himself in my mind. He dropped weight before the season. I think he's really done a good job.
All right, good. So we'll get back to the running back situation in a second, especially Leonard Fournette and all that stuff. Before we do, just real quick thoughts. The 2-point conversion, a lot has been said in the news about that, especially from the New York Jets media side of things. Do you guys agree with Doug Marrone calling for a 2-point conversion with, I think, 27 seconds left on the clock for the entire game? The Jags obviously had the game won.
Yes, I do. 100%. And I've been on both sides of the coin. I've been the team that's been humiliated, and I've been the team that's humiliating. And the bottom line is, and it will always be for as long as sports is a competition, is if you want them to not do it, stop them. That's the bottom line. Now, who knows what the reason was? If it was Marrone bitter about the Jets handling him applying for the job when he quit Buffalo, or if it was him wanting to practice 2-point conversions. Regardless of that, it does not matter. If you want them to stop, then stop them.
Yeah, I'm tired of this show other coaches respect crap. If you want to get paid millions of dollars, stop them. Otherwise, who cares? Run up that score as high as you possibly can. If we can make 100-0, do it. I don't care at all about this. Show the other coach respect. I really don't care what his reason for. If it was out of spite, I love it even more though.
To be fair, I never heard any Jets player or coach or anyone from the Jets organization, for that matter, say anything about it. It was Jets media and other media. So it wasn't like players were coming out and saying anything about it. Tony Baselli said it was a garbage call. So, that's
coming from Tony Baselli. That's a joke.
Yeah.
That's an absolute joke coming from Baselli.
Wow, man.
Joey, what do you think? Did you take issue with it?
I take issue with his hatred of Tony Baselli.
I love Tony Baselli.
I guess that's...
But him saying that is unsportsmanlike is a joke.
Well, yeah,
if you've ever been around that man for more than a minute,
player ever.
You know that's a joke.
Very true. No, I thought it was great. I mean, you can't knock the Jags for being conservative in the second half of the Patriots game last year, or even this year for a little bit. They almost started saying that. And then get mad at them when they go for a 2-point at the end of the game. If you want them to press, like foot on the accelerator the whole game, then have them do that. And whether it's practice or bitterness or the book, like he said, that was hilarious, by the way, after the game. But yeah, man, absolutely. Score as many points as you can with time remaining. I mean, why not?
He said, from what I read today, that he and Nathaniel Hackett had talked at the beginning of that drive, which was a long drive, that, okay, if we score, we're going to go for 2 points. That puts us up by 21. And when they threw it to Dede and he got tackled by Adams, is that his name? Or the safety? Jamal Adams for the Jets. And it was an unsportsmanlike penalty against Adams, and it moved him so much closer that basically they ran it in, and they ended up scoring much later in the game than they thought. But the call had already been made that by the chart they were going to go for 2. And so it was just reactionary to go for 2. Marrone did say, which I was kind of disappointed that he said this. Someone asked him, based on the reaction that you've gotten from that call, looking back, would you do it differently? Would you have just gone for 1 point? He said, yes. I would just gone for 1 point because he goes, I don't like my character being attacked. I have too much respect for the game. I don't like people thinking that I would be vindictive or spiteful in any way. I wish he had just said, no, I would have done the exact same thing because of what you all just said and what I agree with, that these are professional athletes making millions of dollars. If you want to stop them from scoring 2 points, then stop them, which they did, by the way.
Right.
The 2-point conversion didn't even work. So I don't understand what all the fuss is from. I think it's the New York Jets just being media being upset that the Jags just destroyed them.
I can see why he said that, though, because, I mean, being in his position, he doesn't really have his finger on the pulse of like what people feel about him. And he is a pretty stand-up dude. I don't think anybody thinks that he's vindictive at all. I mean, if anything, he's got to be in the best position ever as far as his career goes. I mean, he's got to be happy with what happened. I don't think he did it for vindictive reasons. He doesn't come across that way in any regard whatsoever.
Well, I think he's referring to how he left Buffalo and all that was said about him then. I feel like this might be him reliving that on a much smaller scale.
Well, he left Buffalo because he thought he was going to get the New York Jets head coaching job.
Right.
And so
that's kind of where
on his contract, and then the Jets hired Todd Bowles instead of him.
Yeah, but I think he also...
So we go for a 2-point conversion.
I think he also hauled out of Buffalo because he saw the writing on the wall with that.
And he had a $4 million
Yeah, I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, whatever, man.
Let me go to Jacksonville, wait out Gus Bradley.
Yeah.
and just and clearly it's worked. I mean, the guy's a genius.
But he never came across in any way. I mean, he didn't like knock Gus Bradley. I mean, he's a pretty stand-up dude. I don't see it being vindictive.
Okay,
Whatever.
so I think this will end this segment. Do you guys remember? Think back. This is for our hardcore podcast listeners.
Oh.
Do you remember when we were talking about Dante Fowler being traded for Teddy Bridgewater?
You mean let's see, this is episode 34. So every episode,
No, do you remember when we specifically talked about trading him for Teddy Bridgewater?
When I said Bridgewater was awful.
And remember I said there was a New York Jets news media guy who puts out crap just for stories?
The fake news. Absolutely.
Guess who the New York Jets media guy is? It's been starting all this and put out all that about Marrone. Same guy. I told you.
There you go.
I told you back that
there was actually something before the game. Did he start that before the game started?
No.
Okay.
Manish Mehta. He's the guy who's like pushing this whole thing.
I heard a big
He was
segment.
actually even on the local radio. Hacker and Josie had him on local radio.
That's where I heard it
last night, and I was like, "Really? You have this guy on?" But the same guy who was drumming up crap about us going to trade Dante Fowler for Teddy Bridgewater. Same guy.
There you go. Perspective.
All right. Well, Doug, if you're listening, don't hang your head. It was the right call, and do it again next time.
Yep.
You have another Jags podcast endorsement for that. We're going to move on to Leonard Fournette and all that's going on with him and the Jaguars working out running backs. We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we will discuss that along with our overall thoughts on the first quarter of the season. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, to another Jags podcast, episode 34. We're talking about the Jaguars' victory over the New York Jets, making the Jags 3-1 on the season. Second place in the AFC South. Don't like that part, but got plenty of games left to sort all that madness out. We want to talk about the concerns that we had for this game against the Jets, because it wasn't all perfect. It wasn't all rainbows and unicorns. There were some things that concerned us. The number one thing, I think, for all of us, every Jaguar fan, is Leonard Fournette injury again. I think they pulled him late in the second quarter. Didn't come out again in the second half. It might have been they were up 16-0 at half and thought, we don't need him. They're not going to come back on this defense with a rookie quarterback, which they didn't. They were proven right in that. It could be more severe. We don't know. What we do know is that the Jaguars have been working out running backs, which is never a good sign when your stud running back has been hurt. So, Jason, why don't you tell us a little bit about all that's going on with Jaguars working out some running backs?
Yeah, the Jags have worked out a couple guys, but the front runner for the running back they potentially could sign, his name is Orleans Darka. He was a running back with the New York Giants last year. He's from Tulane. He was undrafted. He played for the Dolphins for a year and then for the Giants for 3 years, actually. He has 1,000 career rushing yards, and he's one of those guys that's your classic run between the tackles guy. He's kind of going to take the spot of Brandon Wilds. He's a much upgraded Brandon Wilds to our roster, and I would imagine Wilds goes to the practice squad. He's a guy that would come in and get a couple carries, but all indications are that we're going to sign him, especially if Fournette is out for any significant amount of time. Like I said, he's an upgrade to Wilds. He would be a short-term solution. But he's better than people think. He's a horse, man. He runs between the tackles. He's really, really hard to tackle. He's a thick dude.
I think the actual pronunciation is Orleans Darkwa. But other than that,
I didn't know you were related to him.
Yeah, hey,
Isn't that the villain on Shrek?
possibly.
Okay. So Jason, how many carries do you envision this guy getting if they sign him? Let's say they sign him tomorrow and he plays on Sunday at Kansas City. Give us your best guesstimation of how many times he gets the ball.
I mean, I can see him not playing at all.
Okay.
I mean, Yeldon is injured, so I think that's why they're bringing him in, because if Yeldon goes down, then you have nobody outside of Grant and Wilds, and you don't want to be in that position at all ever this year. I mean, Corey Grant got 1 carry last week. If Grant's getting 1 carry, I can't imagine this guy getting more than any, unless he really, really had to. Now, if Yeldon gets tired, I think they'll go with Grant. And then if he's tired or something like that, then I think you bring him in. But he's more of an emergency type back, in my opinion.
Okay, what about the following week when he's been on the team a little bit, knows the playbook a little bit more?
I don't know.
I still just emergency?
Yeah, I really do. And a lot of people are saying Fournette's going to go on the IR. I don't think he will. Because I said that, of course he will, because everything I say on here is wrong. But
not about the Jets media guy.
That's true, yeah. Like, if I were to ask you guys, how many carries would you want Fournette to have in his first game back from his hamstring? So let's say sprinkled throughout the game, first game back from a hamstring injury, how many carries would you want Fournette to have? What would you say?
10.
10, yeah. That's exactly what I would say.
Yeah, like 10 to 15.
Okay, he had 11 before he got injured.
Mm-hmm.
That means 11 carries in the first 2 quarters. That's too much for a guy coming back from an injury. Sprinkle his carries. Give him like 4 in the first quarter and then 5 in the second quarter. Like, do it slow. Don't kill him right off the bat. I was really wondering why we were doing that. I mean, he was on pace for 22 carries in his first game back from a hamstring injury.
Dude, you're also 100% correct on Grant not being able to run between the tackles. They tried that against Tennessee, and it was a debacle.
Mm-hmm.
They did not try that this past week because he can't do it. I think they gave him a shot to see what it would look like in a real game. It didn't work. They're bringing this guy in for that, and I think you're right because it's Yeldon's hurt. What about this, though? What about if they really did pull him at halftime because we were up and they didn't want him getting more carries, and this is Marone scheming against KC, which is our biggest opponent coming up, and Fournette is going to play in the game?
I think that's a huge possibility because we've seen Marone play chess before. And
We absolutely have.
I mean, did any of us at halftime, were any of us concerned that the Jets were going to come back in the second half?
Not at all.
No.
Not even a little bit. So I think that's a distinct possibility. But again, Joey, you and I have been echoing this sentiment, have been saying for a while now that hamstring injuries are very finicky and it takes a while and they can act up. You just don't know. You just don't know with a hamstring injury. So it's tough to say either way. I hope that's what it is, that Marone was just holding him, letting him rest for next week. Huge game, which we'll be talking about in episode 35, by the way. But I don't know. I can't hop on board with that 100%.
No, of course I can't
nervous.
either. I'm like hoping that that's the case.
That's literally best case scenario.
Best case scenario, but
Yes.
but either way, you bring this guy in because Fournette's banged up, and we don't have another back that can run between the tackles. So I don't necessarily think that them trying this guy out is because Fournette's like severely injured and he's going IR.
Okay, so let's go to a Twitter question. Jason, you got one for us?
Yep, this one's from Brent Papineau, and he's at Brent Papineau. And he says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned are you guys about Leonard Fournette's injury?
Oh, a 10 at this point. I mean, ankle injuries in college, we haven't really seen that too much in the pros, but I mean, the guy's been out way too many games in the first 2 years. You're talking about Fragile Fred, man. I mean, we need to come up with a moniker for him that, I don't know. No, I'm concerned.
I've been concerned since last year, and this is not helping me whatsoever.
I mean, really, yes, he played a half and he played a little bit in the New England game, but you could argue that he's already missed 3 games.
Look,
in terms of him being a
Yeah.
factor.
Yeah, if this was 1 year of this happening, I'd be perfectly fine. But there is recorded history of high school, college, first year of NFL. Now, I mean, it's just too much for me. I want to get rid of it.
I mean, something maybe we could think about, it would be maybe like the running back that plays every game, every season is kind of gone now. I mean, we look at guys like Ezekiel Elliott, who played the back half of the season and a little bit of the beginning during his suspension. Guys like Le'Veon Bell who are coming back week 7, week 8. I mean, maybe that's a strategy now that's kind of coming up because of all these injuries to running backs and their short lifespan, that these guys don't play a full season anymore. They play half a season. They play 3/4 of a season. And if you can get to that point in control of your division or the wild card, and then you can bring in your guy to finish out the year, maybe that's a better strategy than playing him at the beginning and having him hurt for crunch time. I don't know. I'm just throwing things against the wall, see if they stick. But if I were a coach in this new era of NFL, I think that's an avenue I would explore, and because we've seen it work with successful teams. But something I'll just mention about this Darkwood guy, if it wasn't for the Giants getting Saquon Barkley, he would be their starter. So something to think about. He is starter material. He just kind of fell between the cracks because of the way that Barkley fell to the Giants.
Was he there when Coughlin was there?
Yes.
Well, that says
So
a lot.
they have
then.
that tie. Yeah.
That says an absolute lot.
He's had ties with a lot of players I thought they were going to sign and they didn't. So
Okay, let's continue this discussion. We actually had a Twitter question posed to us about the running back situation. Jason, what was that question?
all right. This is from Michael Harrison, and he's at Twitter at Loves Cougars, our boy.
Yeah.
One of his questions is Fowler and a second rounder for Le'Veon Bell. We give him a 1-year deal while Lenny heals.
I would like to jump in on this one because I say 1,000% yes. Sell the house, man. Who cares about salary cap? Who cares about next year? Super Bowl this
Who cares
year.
about salary cap?
Bring him in.
We don't need that.
It would make us broke.
It would absolutely. I'm not
Like broke.
I'm not like negating the negative consequences of it if we don't win the Super Bowl this year. I'm saying it's worth it
If he's not going to play for a 1-year deal with the Steelers, what makes you think he's going to play for a 1-year deal with the Jaguars?
because he just wants to be away from there.
I think he wants big money
Yeah.
and guaranteed money. The reason he's not with the Steelers is because he doesn't want to get franchise tagged and do another year of $14 million. That's a lot of money already, and he's passing that up. He wants a big guaranteed contract.
Dude, the guy's only 27 years old, and he's a absolute stud running and passing.
That's the problem. At 28, typically running backs don't get that
30.
much money. No. When was the last running back that's really made it to 30 that got a huge contract?
Super Bowl. Pay him.
Yeah, but I want to be like the Patriots. I want to be going to Super Bowls all the time. And those guys don't fork out that kind of money on a running back.
Hey, once you get your first Super Bowl, then you can start worrying about being a dynasty, in my opinion. So let's get that first one and go from there.
It's not happening. So
No.
No, it's not. I agree. But
Good question. Appreciate the feedback on Twitter.
it's entertaining to entertain that idea.
Okay, so we'll see with Leonard Fournette what happens. If we hear of anything, make sure to check our Twitter, and we'll update you there, and also Facebook. Maybe if Joey's paying any attention to what's going on.
Hey, lots of stuff on Facebook.
Another concern that I had, moving away from running backs, this is as a team as a whole. It seemed like the Jags were getting penalized. I mean, just constantly, penalty after penalty after penalty. And I have to be honest, I don't remember too many that were uncalled for. Seems like every time the refs, threw a flag, it was justified. And some of them were just stupid. The Tayshaun Gibson, who played well, the unsportsmanlike conduct where he's talking trash in the dude's face. I'm watching him do that. I'm like, what are you doing? You are about to get penalized. And before I could finish my thought, there's a flag on the field. We've seen this. This has kind of been a trend this season so far. Does this concern you guys in any way, shape, or form?
How could it not? I mean, it's been from the get-go, and it's really kind of against the Coughlin, Marone, school of football. I mean, that's one of the things that they promoted is not having those, and I think they're pretty mad about it as well. I mean, Gibson's interception was called back for a penalty. I mean, we've had Norwell with hands to the face multiple times. There's offside penalties. I mean, just stuff that I guess maybe because they're chomping at the bit to get stuff done is part of it, but if you want to be an elite football team and beat the other elite teams, you cannot have penalties like that.
Disagree 100%.
Really?
Disagree, yeah. Penalties of the type that we're getting are literally because of our nastiness. Look at the 2014 Seahawks. Led the league in penalties. And guess what they did? They won the Super Bowl.
Oh.
Okay. So it's not, yeah, it sucks as a fan to see these drive extenders and these drive killers happen on these 15-yarders, but there's a nastiness that comes to being the number one defense that sometimes leads to penalties. Now, do I feel like the Jags get called more than other teams? Yes, I do. But do I think it's a problem? No, I don't.
Okay, so Jason just officially jinxed us. We're going to lose in the Super Bowl due to a penalty in the end of the game. Thanks, Jason. Way to go, man.
If they get to the Super Bowl, I'll be pumped.
The ones that bother me are the after the play is dead penalties. Pass interference penalties don't bother me. I think those are smart usually for a cornerback to hold a guy if he knows he's beat. Hold him. Don't let him catch the ball and run into the end zone, because especially when your defense is that good, you can reset and hold them to a field goal or whatever. So, holding penalties on the offensive line, obviously none of us love those, but that's going to happen too. It's the unsportsmanlike conduct ones that just kill me, because to me, yes, you're nasty, but that doesn't mean you have to be stupid.
And those are 15-yarders.
Yeah, and they're 15-yarders, which is a lot. Especially when, we can let go of all the penalties from this past Sunday because the Jags won in pretty relatively easy fashion. It was never really a close game ever. So you can let those go, but it's not always going to be like that. And in a lot of games when Bortles isn't having a career day, 15 yards is a big deal. And so you can be nasty and be smart at the same time. And I just feel like they haven't gotten that yet.
Well, the Gibson one, too, for me, that put us from being on the 50-yard line back 15 yards. We could have very easily been even in field goal position, but instead we end up having to punt that drive because of it. I'm with Jason on a lot of those penalties. Don't really get on my nerves. The ones that do, we didn't have it this week, but the previous week, the delay of games penalties absolutely drive me nuts. I don't even blame that on Bortles. I blame that solely on coaching. You can call the timeout. Pay attention. Call the timeout, especially when we have 3 and it's early on. Go ahead and don't let a delay of game. That's ridiculous. And the other ones is like illegal shifts and stuff like that. I mean, these are basic football things that you're professionals. We shouldn't be having these issues. I mean, get with it, get on it, and don't let them happen again. But they've happened multiple times now. Usually it's like once a season, but I mean, those are the ones that absolutely drive me nuts.
All right, so
I agree. Yeah,
little torn on that one. Some people concerned, some not. And
how about this for you guys? Yannick Ngakoue had a 10-snap decrease from last week. I want you guys to guess which player got a 10-snap increase.
Actually, I think it might have been Taven Bryan.
It's not related to Ngakoue at all, is it?
Taven Bryan only had 9 snaps.
Taven Bryan has not done anything.
I was going like I thought you were throwing a curveball.
Oh,
Taven Bryan's been impressive.
There's no curveball. This is a fastball right down the middle.
It's going to be Harrison.
Oh, no.
No, it's Fowler then.
It's Fowler.
Yeah, it's obviously.
Really? So we talked about on the last podcast, Fowler was 17 snaps. Are we going to see, with the sack, are we going to see him get an increase in Ngakoue's lack of production? Are we going to see him get a decrease? The answer to that was yes.
Well, good for Fowler because he's earned it.
Overall, for the expectations that we all had, that most people had, was if you had said 1 sack through the first 4 games on a 3-1 record, that'd have been pretty disappointing. Here's the thing. Fowler gets 10 more snaps, and he was quiet too. I mean, in terms of, just the major stats of the game. So it was quiet for both of them.
They both had decent amount of pressures, though. The Malik Jackson sack, if Malik wasn't there, Fowler would have been there. I mean, he was touching them on his way down. But yeah. And
then there was one that Ngakoue was in full sprint after Darnold. I mean, 1 more 7, he would have gotten him, and Darnold threw it away. So, I mean, yeah, you can't measure everything in terms of stats, but it just seemed, usually you can see guys that are around the ball all the time, and he just hasn't had that like it seemed like he did last year. But to me, they've both been, below what we thought they were going to be.
And I'll take that a step further because you talk about our concerns for the game. It's hard to knock our defense because of the points that have been scored on them. But you want to talk about an elite defense and our expectations for this defense, which are admittedly as high as they could possibly be. The whole defense, as far as turnovers, interceptions, sacks, fumbles, I'm concerned that they're not quite doing what I expect them to do. I mean, sorry.
No, I was going to bring that up actually myself. They are the number 1 defense in the NFL. And I take this as a positive, actually. They're the number 1 defense in the NFL in terms of points allowed, I think, yards and all that stuff. Yet, it doesn't seem like they've even come into their own yet.
Yeah, we didn't have any turnovers this week.
should have.
There was an interception that was called back from a penalty.
That's true.
That should have. They called a holding in the secondary, but I think it was Tayshaun Gibson had an interception.
Right.
But
Boye had one in his chest that would have been a guaranteed pick six.
And don't forget, Ramsey
should have had one in the end zone.
I love Ramsey,
Yeah,
but there was 2 picks he should have had.
So it's almost like they're pressing. You know, it's like they haven't. I mean, they had the defensive touchdown in the very first game of the season with Miles Jack, so they had that one right off the bat. But it just seems like they are putting all this pressure on themselves, and they just haven't broken through yet. Having said that, they are still incredibly dominant. So, in a way, it's frustrating to an extent. But I take it kind of as, you know, they're not even playing to the way that they can yet, and they're still this dominant.
And we've had an increased number of 3 and outs. So teams are just trying. They realize what we have with the pass rush, and they're just getting rid of the ball quickly. They're not holding the ball in the pocket like they did last year. They're getting rid of it quicker, and we're forcing more 3 and outs, forcing more punts, and also our interior defensive linemen have really stepped up. So I don't know if that was an emphasis on our edge players, but I mean Malik Jackson and Calais Campbell, Marcel Darius, these guys are playing out of their minds right now.
That's very
and we
true.
had a safety. Our defense scored 2 points, and so we're getting production from different places this year, which, like James said, I think is a positive.
I did say that kind of tongue in cheek as well, obviously, because I mean,
No, but you're right. The typical players like Jalen Ramsey, these guys like even Bouye's grading out well, but he's not like getting turnovers. These guys aren't like popping, and Miles Jack, Telvin,
well, and
they're not
Gakwe
popping
too. I
off.
mean, it's not like last year.
Yeah.
But the good thing is about that is like after the game, Telvin Smith, again, honestly, my favorite player on the team, he comes out and says that. Like he's like, as a defense, we don't care if we're number 1. We feel like we can do better. Like they feel that, they want that, they know they can do that. So I mean, it's like, where are these guys going to go?
And to be fair, the offenses they've played, I mean, the Jets, the Giants, the Titans, I mean, it's terrible offenses. So, I mean, it is what it is, but maybe we'll reevaluate the stats after they play, you know, KC.
I know she didn't like throw the Patriots in there as a terrible offense.
Well, I mean, they were when they played us. I think they'll get
That's right,
better.
they were.
But they're not a good offense right now. They've had one good game this year on
You're
offense,
right.
and it was last week.
Yeah.
So
right.
we could have added them in, honestly. So we have played 4 bad defenses, and we played 4 bad offenses. So I think our defense is good, but like everyone's kind of saying, there's still some left to be desired.
Well, and again, I think that's a good thing. If you can be this dominant, and not only players saying that we can be better, but fans also seeing that as well, man, that's pretty exciting. Okay, real quick, we're going to wrap up the episode with this. Overall thoughts on the first quarter. We're 4 games in. I hope you didn't blink because that went by really quick, by the way. It's a little sad, honestly. 3-1. Second place in the AFC South. It hurts to say that. I've seen a lot of power polls, which don't mean anything, but you look at them for whatever reason. I saw one today that did all 32 teams power poll, had the Jags at 5, and had the Titans, who were in first place, at 20.
It's probably about right, though.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think most people would probably agree with that. So that suggests that as the season progresses, Jags are going to go back on top. Kind of surprised that the Titans beat the Eagles. I was pretty bummed about that. Come on, Eagles. You're better than that. But what are your guys' thoughts on the first quarter? Not just the record, but your overall impression of the team.
Well, if I'm going on record, I'm disappointed because I think we should have been 4-0 after we beat the Patriots. I'm not happy right now. I am happy. I think our defense is outstanding. I need consistency of our offense right now. I mean, we've had 2 huge flashes and then 2 just not that great, especially the Tennessee game. So I should be way more ecstatic. I feel like we should have done way better, especially with the Tennessee game. It's just I'm still got a bitter taste in my mouth about that game.
Sure.
I mean, honestly, I thought we were going to be 3-1. So I mean, we're right where we're at. I thought we'd lose to the Patriots and beat the Titans. So that's a little different. And we've kind of won differently than I thought. I mean, I thought our defense would have more to do with it as far as the scores went. I honestly did not think that our offense would have looked as good as it does in the games that it did look that good. So, I mean, that was kind of a shocker. I thought it would be
You did call Blake Bortles a Pro Bowl quarterback.
I did, but, I mean, he's been like almost above and beyond that. And I think that might have more to do with the rules in the game than him actually being as elite.
Above and beyond, you're calling him Hall of Fame?
Well, I mean, you look last week, and I think, 8 quarterbacks had over 400 yards.
You heard it here first.
There was like 13 over 300 yards. So, I mean, there's a lot of good passing numbers going up this year, which was unexpected. Couldn't have
But
really
bound to
foreseen
happen
that.
with how the rules are.
Exactly. But They're exactly where I thought they would be, just in a different kind of way, I guess is the best way to say that.
Okay.
So I'm very happy.
I'm not that happy. I mean, I am, but I just know we can be better. And I really, really thought we were going to be 4-0 going into the season. I thought these were 4 all winnable games. So to lose one, especially to the Titans, has me a little disappointed. I hate saying we're in second place. I think a lot of that is just our expectations for the team have changed drastically from one year to the next. I think they can be better. So saying you're 3-1 and you can be better is a good thing. So we'll see. I'm sticking with my 13-3 prediction. So they're just going to have to win one that I thought they may lose, because they lost one that I thought they would absolutely win.
KC, baby.
That's right. Very possible. We'll get to that in episode 35 for sure. But I guess I'm happy, but I could be happier. Maybe that's how I'll put it.
Yeah, I'm real happy. I mean, we think back to last year through the first 4 games, it was win, loss, and it was the bad losses and good wins. And so now we're kind of in that same spot, but we pulled out a win against we'll call the Giants. I think we're in a good spot, especially compared to last year. I mean, think about how good we did last year and how we looked through the first 4 games last year compared to now. We're sitting here expecting to win the first 4 games. I'm happy. I'm glad. It's been fun. I'm glad the September home games are over. I love going to home games.
That's the truth.
But the fact that I don't have to sit in that hot sun anymore is amazing. Amazing. So
It's Florida, though. You might still have to do
but
that.
nothing will be like it was in September.
Nothing.
And Justin, we don't agree a ton, but I think you're dead on with that. I mean, the fact that we pulled out the game against New York, which was a game we probably would have lost last year, and the fact that our offense looks better and our defense doesn't look quite what we want it to be is unexpected and a positive. So I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, you can't ever be upset with a 3-1 start. I just hate being in second place to the Titans.
Well, that's the whole thing, man. It's the freaking Titans, man.
I can't stand it.
Prisco had a power ranking where they were ahead of us, and
No.
it's because
Good for him,
they
man.
win like gritty games. That's how they win. They've
That's
always
true.
been like that. That's been their MO. They fight you in the dirt and they win, and they've done that. They did us. They did the Eagles, and that's just how they win games.
I'll say this still, though. Sorry, Robert. I'll say this still. I don't think they're that good. I think they played us on the worst game we will play all year, and they caught the Eagles before the Eagles are going to be the Eagles. I guarantee you, if the Eagles played at Tennessee in November with Carson Wentz in full swing and they have their running backs, the Eagles win that game, and they barely beat them then. I'm sorry. I still am not. Maybe it's because, like you said, how they win. It's ugly wins. I'm just not impressed by them whatsoever.
I still think they're better than you give them credit for. Again, sorry, Robert. But.
No, not only that. I mean, until we beat them, they're better than us. in my
Exactly,
opinion.
man. I mean,
Until
they're
we
not.
beat them, they're better than us.
I can't believe you would that can come out of your mouth.
dude, I would put them above us in every power poll possible until we beat them. I agree with Robert. I mean, they own us.
So you think that they're going to win the division?
They beat us, then follow that up by beating the Super Bowl champions. So yes, I'm very concerned about Tennessee.
I'm not even a little bit concerned with Tennessee.
I don't think they're good, but man, I don't know.
The only thing that concerns me with playing them again is it's a Thursday night game, and road teams hardly win Thursday night games because it's just so advantageous to the home team.
It's gonna be freezing cold too.
Dude, Nashville's like an hour from here flight, man.
It doesn't matter.
Come
For
on.
some
Man,
reason, it doesn't
I hate
matter.
the whole travel thing. These guys ride first class, and it only
Exactly.
takes.
I know, but it's gonna be
the furthest-
freezing. That's the problem.
No, yeah. The
It's gonna be
temperature I
20
understand, but
degrees
the
in
first
December up there.
we don't have jet lag in the United States.
Well, I'm not
first
saying
class.
that. I'm saying if you look at Thursday night games, the home team wins. I don't know what the percentage is,
Yeah.
but it is high. So that if it was Sunday, I'd be feeling a lot better about that game. But I mean, I understand that they own us for whatever reason, but we only play them once. They got to play a bunch of other teams as well. And I just think by the end of it, we're going to be better than they are record. It could be the exact same thing that happened last year, and I'm fine with that. I don't care. Well, as long as we win the division. Actually, I do care a lot. But
Okay, well, I mean, do you see Houston or Indy beating them?
No.
I can
Yeah.
see one of those teams
Yeah.
getting a win against them.
And-
absolutely,
it would
I
be
think
Indy.
I think Indy could beat them, especially at home.
They'd have to outscore them, but their defense isn't bad.
I just don't think you can sustain that type of success the way that they play over a 16-game season. They're just barely winning.
I mean,
And I know everyone
the
says
Browns took them to overtime last year, and they made the second round of the playoffs.
Yeah, but they've been
Yes.
doing this with Mariota with no hand. I mean,
And when they played a
Well, if
good
he
team in
gets
the
a
second
hand-
round of the playoffs, they got absolutely destroyed.
Yeah, they still made it.
And
there.
they played an Andy Reid team in the first round who cannot for the life of him win in the playoffs. I don't know, whatever. It doesn't matter. This isn't about the Titans. This is about the Jaguars. So that wraps up the first quarter of the season. Wraps up this podcast, episode 34. We want to again remind everyone you can find us on Twitter at Another Jags Pod, Facebook and Instagram, Another Jags Podcast, YouTube, Another Jags Podcast, and website, anotherjagspodcast.com. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, reach out to us and we'll try and add them to the show. We pretty much bat 1,000 on that. If you write us and ask a question, we will feature it on an episode. Episode 35, be looking for that. We're going to be previewing the Jags-Chiefs game. Huge game. So listen up for that. Should be coming to you very shortly. Thanks for listening. And as always, go Jags.